No one remembers ordering it. It arrived on a cold Thursday afternoon, packed in a dusty old box without a return address. Karen stood in the middle of the living room, staring at it. "Did you order something?" she asked Mark, her voice trailing off into confusion. Mark shook his head. "Number? What the hell is that?" He rubbed his neck uneasily. The box looked old. The cardboard was yellowed, edges frayed, as if it had traveled miles through time rather than distance. A single word was scrawled in faded ink across the top. Labyrinth. The couple exchanged glances, half nervous, half curious. Against their better judgment, they opened it. Inside, neatly packed, was a toy labyrinth, one of those old wooden puzzle boxes with a tiny metal ball. But there was something off about it. The intricate maze wasn't the usual size. This one was huge, almost the size of a large board game. Tiny walls cast actual shadows. Every detail was too refined, too real. "It looks antique," Karen murmured, running a finger along the edge. "It's beautiful, but something feels wrong." Mark tried to laugh it off. "It's just a toy, babe. Maybe someone sent it by mistake." But even as he spoke, both of them couldn't help but stare. The ball inside wasn't just resting, it was moving. That night, sleep came late. Mark stayed in the living room, fiddling with the toy, tracing the ball's slow, deliberate movement. "I swear this thing moves on its own," he muttered. Karen, half asleep in the doorway, watched him with growing unease. "Mark, it's late. Put it down." "I'm just... Look, watch," he whispered, pointing. As if hearing him, the ball shifted, turning into another corridor without Mark's touch. A faint click echoed through the room, far louder than such a tiny toy should make. Karen's breath caught. "Did you hear that?" He nodded. Yeah, I did." They stared at each other, something unspoken passing between them. A silent agreement they should have stopped. But curiosity is a cruel thing. Suddenly, the power flickered. The house groaned as if protesting. And then, laughter. Faint, childish laughter echoed, chilling the air. "Oh my God, did you hear that?" Karen gasped, her face pale. Mark nodded stiffly, every hair on his body standing on end. It came from the toy. The following morning, the house felt different, the air heavier. Mark swore he'd pack the thing up and throw it away. But when he entered the living room, the labyrinth wasn't where they left it. Instead, it sat neatly on the dining table, facing the front door. The ball was no longer metallic. It was red now. Karen stepped back, hands trembling. "That's not possible." Mark approached, swallowing hard. "There's something new. Look." He pointed. New corridors had appeared inside the maze, tiny toy doors, miniature staircases. It looked like it had grown overnight. Then they heard it again. Giggles, high-pitched, playful, somewhere between innocent and sinister. Karen gasped. "Mark, where's Emily's doll?" "The one in the cabinet." They both turned. The doll, Emily's old porcelain toy long since stored away, was gone. A noise made them both freeze, a soft thump from upstairs, followed by a rolling sound, like a ball gliding over wooden floors. Mark grabbed a flashlight, his voice barely a whisper. "Stay here." Upstairs, the hallway felt longer, stretched somehow. The walls seemed closer, suffocating. Mark's breath quickened as he moved toward Emily's old room. The door creaked open. Dust floated in the air, dancing in the thin beam of his flashlight. And there it was, the doll, sitting upright on the bed, staring at him. In its porcelain hands was the metal ball from the maze. Mark staggered back, colliding with the wall. "No, No, no! Suddenly, the maze in the dining room let out a click. Karen screamed from downstairs, "Mark! It's moving!" He bolted down, 2 steps at a time, but the house was different now. Doors led to places they shouldn't. The kitchen was gone. Instead, more walls, more narrow hallways, all leading back to the labyrinth, sitting smugly on the table. Karen was there, frozen. We're inside it, aren't we? Mark's lips trembled. I don't know. I think we are. The maze now pulsed, its tiny corridors glowing faintly. New paths appeared, one of which showed a tiny figure of Karen. Hours passed, or maybe days. Time lost all meaning. Every corner they turned inside their own house felt unfamiliar. Windows showed only darkness now. Mirrors reflected empty rooms they weren't standing in. And the toys, the damn toys, they moved. The doll followed them, always reappearing at the end of every new corridor, its glassy eyes watching. I want out, Karen sobbed, her knees hitting the cold wooden floor. Mark grabbed her face, desperate. Listen to me. We have to finish the maze. That's what it wants. Her eyes widened. What if it doesn't let us? What if it keeps changing? We don't have a choice. With trembling hands, he reached for the labyrinth again. The ball moved swiftly this time, almost guiding him. And then they heard it. A door creaking open, a faint whisper. You're almost there. Karen and Mark followed the sound, pushing deeper into the shifting walls. The final corridor appeared, narrow, suffocating, leading to a door they'd never seen. With a shaky breath, they pushed it open. They found themselves standing outside, in front of their own house, birds chirping, morning sun rising. It was over? Karen wept, collapsing into Mark's arms. We're home, we're home. But Mark didn't move. He stared at the house, jaw clenched. Karen, look. The front door was wide open. Inside, sitting on the dining table, was the labyrinth, pristine, waiting. And inside the maze, the metal ball moved again, this time toward a new tiny figure. A man and a woman, frozen mid-scream. Days passed, or maybe weeks. Mark couldn't tell anymore. Everything seemed normal, but it wasn't. Karen stopped talking about that night. She avoided the dining room altogether. Yet, Mark felt it, that constant pull, a presence, like the maze was still watching. One evening, alone, he couldn't resist. Something in his chest tightened, like invisible strings guiding him back to the table. There it was, perfect, untouched, waiting. Mark's hands trembled as he reached out. The second his fingers grazed the maze, a whisper slithered into his ear. One last turn, Mark. You left the game unfinished. His blood ran cold. He tried to pull away, but it was too late. The maze lit up. The ball raced through the corridors. Faster, faster. Karen screamed his name from the hallway, but her voice sounded distant, fading. Mark gasped, his mouth wide open in silent horror as the final piece of the maze clicked into place. The last thing he saw was his own face, trapped inside the miniature walls, screaming silently. It was supposed to be a regular Tuesday evening, one of those monotonous nights when the television hums in the background and the clock ticks louder than it should. Mark Thompson, 46, leaned back on his worn-out couch, rubbing his temples after another exhausting day at the office. His wife, Julia, was visiting her sister out of town, leaving the house unusually quiet. That silence, however, was broken by the doorbell. Mark frowned. It was nearly 8:30 p.m. Who the hell delivers anything this late? Peering through the peephole, he saw a delivery man, expressionless, pale, his uniform oddly outdated. Hesitating, Mark opened the door. "Package for Mark Thompson," the man mumbled, holding a large cardboard box without a label. Mark's throat dried instantly. "I didn't order anything." The man shrugged, as if he'd heard that 1,000 times before. "It's paid for. Signed anonymously." The moment the package touched Mark's hands, the delivery guy was gone. No sound of retreating steps, no truck engine, just vanished. A cold shiver ran down Mark's spine. What the hell was this? Curiosity won. Mark placed the box on the dining table, his hands trembling slightly as he grabbed a kitchen knife to slice through the tape. The second the flaps opened, the stench of old, musty plastic filled the air, like toys forgotten in a basement for decades. Inside, there they were. Dolls, toy soldiers, wooden puzzles, aged, discolored, and reeking of something Mark couldn't place. Their eyes, glassy, unblinking, almost too real. Among them, a peculiar toy stood out, a small, hand-carved wooden maze with a blood-red marble sitting neatly at the start. Mark muttered, "What the hell is this?" and laughed nervously, though the sound came out hollow. He didn't know why, but touching that maze felt wrong. Yet against his better judgment, he picked it up. Suddenly, the air grew heavier. The kitchen lights flickered and a chill settled into the room. He could have sworn. The toys were facing him now, their tiny eyes fixed, watching, waiting. That night, sleep became impossible. Mark tossed and turned, haunted by the image of that maze. At 3:17 a.m., a loud thud jolted him awake. Heart racing, he stumbled downstairs, expecting a burglar or maybe a raccoon. Instead, the toys were scattered across the floor. The maze was open, its tiny marble missing. Mark's mouth hung open. "No way! I left them in the box." A sudden voice echoed, not loud, but unmistakable. "Finish the maze." Mark's eyes darted around. "Julia!" But of course she wasn't home. The maze was now larger, impossibly larger, sprawling across the living room like it had grown. And there it was, the red marble glowing faintly in the distance. "Frozen," Mark whispered. This isn't happening." But his feet moved on their own. The moment his skin touched the maze, the room melted away. Walls, endless wooden walls. The maze was real. Mark stood inside, his breath visible in the freezing air. The only sound, his panicked gasps and the faint echo of childlike giggles. "Okay, Mark, get a grip," he muttered, hands trembling. "It's a dream. Gotta be a dream." But the rough wood scraped his palms. Every turn felt too real. He called out, "Hello?" only to hear his own voice bounce back. Suddenly the toys appeared, blocking paths, moving on their own. The wooden soldiers aimed their splintered rifles. A porcelain doll grinned unnaturally wide and whispered, "Keep playing, or you'll never leave." Mark's knees buckled. "What do you want from me?" The marble glowed brighter, rolling deeper into the maze, luring him forward. As Mark chased the marble, the maze changed, walls turning into scenes from his past, his old childhood bedroom, the park where he lost his little brother decades ago. The memory slammed into him like a truck. He stood frozen. "No, I haven't thought about this in years." A boy appeared, his brother Timmy, still 7 years old, smiling. "Come play, Mark. Finish the maze." Tears welled in Mark's eyes. "Timmy? Is that you? But deep down, he knew. It wasn't. It was the maze, playing games. Timmy's face twisted, eyes blackening. You left me. Now it's your turn. Mark screamed, stumbling back. The walls bled shadows. He had to get out. Now! The faster Mark ran, the tighter the maze closed around him. Hallways shrank, forcing him to crawl. Toy hands clawed at his clothes. Wooden faces whispered, "Stay, stay." Mark's voice cracked. "What do you want?" No answer. Just the marble. Always the marble, rolling just out of reach. Suddenly he burst into a clearing. Julia stood there, smiling eerily. "You're almost done, honey. Finish the maze. We're waiting." Mark blinked hard. "Julia? No, you're not real." Her face twisted. "Neither are you." "Not anymore." Mark lunged for the marble. The second his fingers closed around it, a blinding light swallowed everything. He woke up, gasping, in his living room. Morning sunlight poured through the windows. The toys were gone. The maze, gone. Julia's car was pulling up outside. Mark laughed, half mad. It's over. It's over. But then, the sound of a marble rolling echoed through the house. He turned slowly. There, on the coffee table, the wooden maze sat pristine. A new message carved deep into the wood. "Next time, we play with her." Mark's face drained of color as Julia walked inside, smiling. "Morning, honey. Did you sleep well?" Mark forced a shaky smile as Julia stepped inside. "Morning, honey. Did you sleep well?" For a moment, everything felt normal. Almost too normal. Julia's soft voice, the faint smell of coffee she brought in. Maybe it had been a nightmare. But then, Mark's eyes drifted back to the table. The maze wasn't there anymore. Only the red marble remained, staring at him like an unblinking eye. He swallowed hard. "Julia, did you see this?" He pointed, his finger trembling. Julia's gaze darkened. She placed the coffee down with unnatural calmness. "See what, Mark?" Her smile was off, too wide, too forced. "The marble, the maze." His voice cracked. "The toys." Julia sat across from him, folding her hands neatly on the table. "There are no toys, Mark. You've been in the maze longer than you think." His throat tightened. "What the hell are you saying?" Julia's face slowly cracked, like porcelain shattering, revealing pale wood beneath. Her eyes turned pitch black. "Mark, you never left." The walls of the house groaned. Light bulbs burst, plunging everything into flickering shadows. The kitchen twisted, stretching into those same suffocating wooden corridors. "No. No!" exclamation mark Mark screamed, backing away as Julia's body contorted, limbs snapping unnaturally. Her voice echoed around him, deep, hollow, almost demonic. "You finished the game. Now it's her turn." Mark spun around toward the front door, but there was no door anymore, only maze walls. The house was gone. The world was gone. "Julia!" he shrieked, clawing at the walls. "Don't touch her! Leave her out of this!" A childlike giggle echoed in reply. "You should have read the rules. One finishes, one begins." And then he saw her, Julia, standing further down the maze, confused, calling his name. "Mark, where am I?" Before he could move, the walls slammed shut between them. Her scream, that single, blood-curdling scream, was the last thing Mark heard. Darkness swallowed him whole. The maze had claimed them both, and somewhere, far away, the red marble rolled, searching for its next home. It started on a Tuesday evening. One of those dull, unremarkable nights where you expect nothing more than a quiet dinner and maybe a glass of wine before bed. Michael had just turned 47, a man of routine, skeptical by nature, and proud of being able to dismiss the unexplained with logic. He'd always laughed at those ghost stories his wife Emma used to whisper during their younger days. But that night, something happened that no rational mind could easily dismiss. The sound came from the playroom upstairs, a soft, repetitive clatter, like tiny wooden pieces falling and rearranging themselves. Michael froze mid-sip, the wine glass trembling slightly in his hand. "What the hell is that?" he muttered under his breath. Emma turned her head, eyebrows furrowed. "Did you hear it?" she asked, her voice carrying that familiar trace of worry. For a brief second, they both stayed still, ears straining. The sound came again, a distinct click, clack, click. They didn't have children. That playroom, once filled with laughter and dreams they never got to live, was now just a storage space for old dusty toys. A chill crept down Michael's spine. "It's probably the wind," he forced a laugh, shaking his head. But something inside him knew. No wind could make that precise, measured sound. Reluctantly, Michael stood up, his joints protesting as if his body itself was warning him to sit back down. "I'll check," he muttered, more to himself than to Emma. She stayed silent, staring at him with wide eyes as he grabbed the old flashlight from the kitchen drawer, the one he hadn't touched in years. The house felt heavier with every step he took up the creaking stairs. It wasn't just age. There was something thick in the air, like it was suffocating him the higher he climbed. Reaching the top landing, he glanced down the dark hallway. The door to the playroom was slightly ajar, though he could swear it had been shut for months. Pushing it open slowly, Michael shined the flashlight around the room. Dust particles danced in the beam like a swarm of tiny ghosts. Every corner looked exactly as he remembered. Shelves of old board games, faded dolls slumped over, and that wooden labyrinth toy. The maze. His breath caught in his throat. The maze was the only toy he remembered buying himself, a gift to their unborn child, now covered in a thin layer of dust and grief. It sat there, perfectly still, yet something felt wrong, very wrong. The metal ball that belonged inside the labyrinth wasn't in its resting place. Instead, it sat right at the center of the maze, as if someone had just finished the game. Michael blinked hard. "Emma, did you?" he called out, his voice cracking. But she was still downstairs, and the house was silent again. The next night, it happened again. This time, the sound came earlier, just after dinner. Click, clack, click, and then a faint giggle. Michael swore he heard it, high-pitched, distant, almost playful. Emma turned pale, her fork slipping from her hand. "Michael, this isn't funny." "I know," he whispered, standing up. He didn't bother with the flashlight this time. He climbed the stairs with heavy steps, heart pounding so loudly he felt it might burst. The playroom door was wide open, waiting for him. Inside, the air was colder, the kind of cold that sinks into your bones. The maze was no longer on the shelf. It was on the floor, the metal ball rolling slowly, impossibly, by itself. It spun once, twice, and then settled right back in the center. Michael stared, unable to move. He could feel sweat trickling down his temple despite the cold. "Who's there?" he shouted, voice trembling. No answer, just that lingering giggle, now fading into silence. He slammed the door shut and backed away. almost tripping over his own feet. By the third night, Emma refused to stay in the house. She packed a small bag, trembling. "Michael, something's in that room. I don't care what you believe. That toy it's not right." He couldn't blame her, but he couldn't leave either. Not yet. There was something about the maze that pulled him back, a sickening curiosity, like the toy was calling him. That night, he returned to the playroom alone, except it wasn't the same room anymore. The walls felt taller, the shelves endless. Toys stared down at him from impossible heights. The labyrinth toy lay in the center of the room, but now it was massive, large enough to step inside. And he did. One shaky step forward, then another. The world tilted. The walls shifted. He wasn't in the playroom anymore. He was inside the maze. Michael turned sharply, searching for the exit, but there was none. Only twisting wooden walls, narrow passages, and distant giggles that echoed all around. "This isn't real," he breathed, his voice bouncing back at him. The further he walked, the more distorted everything became. Familiar toys from the room appeared, but they were no longer toys. A jack-in-the-box cranked itself, its face twisted in a permanent scream. A doll lay sprawled, her glass eyes following him as he passed. And then he heard Emma's voice. "Michael, help me." Faint, desperate. He spun around, heart racing. "Emma?" Her voice came again, closer this time. "I'm here, inside, the maze." Panic clawed at his throat. "Where? Tell me where!" he screamed. But all he got was silence, and the slow, deliberate roll of the metal ball behind him. Hours, or maybe minutes, passed. Time meant nothing inside that cursed labyrinth. And then, at the center of the maze, he saw it, a mirror. Cracked, ancient. But the reflection wasn't his. It was their child. The child they never had. "Why didn't you come for me?" the boy whispered, eyes hollow. Michael stumbled back, gasping. I tried. We lost you." His voice broke. The boy's face twisted into something dark, something unnatural. "You left me here, alone. Now you stay." The wooden walls creaked, closing in. Michael ran, stumbling, screaming for Emma. But the maze shifted with him, every turn leading him deeper, further away. Emma found him the next morning, or what was left of him. The playroom was empty, except for the wooden labyrinth sitting innocently on the floor. Inside it, the metal ball rolled slowly, eternally, and if you listened closely, you could still hear it. Click, clack, click. And sometimes, just sometimes, a faint whisper echoed from the center. "Your turn."